Hello to all students. How are you? Hope you all are sound and safe. Today we are going to discuss the chapter number 18, Monitoring and Controlling, in which we are going to cover the definition of controlling and why the controlling is important and what the reason of doing controlling. And then we will discuss the link of planning and controlling, and after it we will discuss the process in which we have a three steps and measures and what the actions which is taken by the managers um, in controlling, and then the organizational performance and what the measures used by organization and tool of organizational performance, in which we have feed forwarded, concurrent and feedback control. So then the benchmark used in controlling, and after all, finally, we will discuss the contemporary issues in controlling. So, first of all, we have to look at the definition of controlling. What is controlling? Um, Basically, in this, we are monitoring the activity and ensure that they are being accomplished as planned, and if there is any deviation and variation, so then we will correct it and we will take the corrective action, disciplinary actions. So what the purpose of controlling? So the purpose of controlling is basically ensure the activities that they are completed in a way which lead to attainment of organization goals or not. So we ensure the activities, whether the workers, whether the team are working in the direction which lead to the accomplished of goals and target or not. So we have so many example of controlling in book. We have a lot of companies example. Hope you all are reading the chapters and reading the book. So I discussed some of examples with you guys, in which if we take the example of Google, so at January 2019, they have some technical glitch in which they are showing the dollar under the value 76. $1 equals to 76 rupee, uh, but the actual value was 139 rupees. So this is the technical glitch of Google, and as same with euro and pound. Uh, and if we look at the example of book, in which we have Denver Myth, in which they are mistakenly printed the up extra up leaf and extra down leaf. So and if we take the example of Walmart, in which they are showing the under cost, they are showing the treadmill of cost $33. And if we look at the example of Tesco Bell, in which the employee leaking the Tesco shell and up and go these videos online, and then they fire the employee, and Domino Pizza, in which they are using the vulgar and unsanitary language, and they all are went online. So this is all relate to controlling. We do controlling, try to avoid these all incidents, these all mishaps, and try to ensure the activities, try to ensure uh, the process and the system of work. So because of to avoid these all things, we are doing controlling. And if we take the example of our university, so before pandemic we have planned to take we have planned to take the midterm exam, but because of pandemic and because of these all issues, we are unable to achieve this target, achieve this goal. and like the university have planned to take the physical classes, but they are unable to do it because of social distancing and all pandemic things. So so this is what we are doing in planning. We are we are doing in planning. For example, the university's sole purpose is improving the performance, and the main objective is to mm, is to in the main objective of a student um, is learning. So they will do it by replacing they are unable to take the examination because the universities are closed. So they are replace the papers with assignments replace the paper with assignments, and they do grading on the basis of assignments. And like we have planned to give the project company visit project to my students. I give the company visits project to my students, but because of pandemic they are unable to visit the company. So um, I replace it with assignments. So these all are the example of controlling. We do controlling to ensure the activities, to look after and to monitor the activities, whether they are doing according to plan or they are not doing according to plan. And if there is any problem in our performance, in our activities, so we replace it with other plans and with backup plans. So this is all about controlling. Then we have the second is, why is controlling important? And in this we are look at the link of management function. As you all guys knows that we have four management function. The first is planning, then organizing, then leading, and the final one is basically controlling, in which we are discussing now. So what is planning? Planning is basically the management function in which we setting the goal and establishing the strategies, and then integrate and coordinate the activities. So this is the planning. In planning, manager know whether their goals and plan are on target and what future action to take in. So we set the goals, and after it the manager interpret whether they have to take some action or not. So according to the interpretation, according to the analysis, they take the action, and they take the managerial action. And if everything is according to plan, so they do nothing. Okay. Then after it we have empowering employee basically is giving some powers to employees. Manager get the information and feedback on employee performance through the evaluation and interpretation and reports. So they look what the problem and what the issues are facing by the manager, and if they need any sort of empowerment, any sort of relief in order to perform any activities, so the manager give them. Because empowering the empowering the employee is so important. We have to empower them, we have to give them some authorities, because otherwise they are unable to perform their activities and to achieve their goals and to attain their goals. Then the last is protecting the workplace. Protecting the workplace, basically the physical security. We ensure the physical security, because if we are not ensure it, so it will disturb our work and our system. So because the external environment is full of uncertainty. We have natural disasters, for example terrorism, supply chain disturbance, and so many other things. So if you take the example of our university, so our university is also ensuring the physical security, like the wall around the university, and guard on the gate, and students IDs, etc. So these all are ensuring the security in which before entering entering in university, everyone have show their identity ID card, or whether if they don't have ID card, and so they have to tell the guard what the purpose of visiting and what the reason of coming the university. So these all are the securities task security activities which secure our university, which secure the university from any type of disturbance, any type of disturbance. Then we have the planning and controlling link, in in which we have the diagram, in which the first one is planning, then we have organizing, then leading, and then controlling. In planning we have goal and objective. Objective is basically the synonym of each other. These are the goals and target which organization want to achieve. These are the desired targets, these are the desires outcomes which the organization want to achieve. And after it we have a strategy is basically the analysis of internal and external environment, and find the best match between the strength, opportunity, threat, and weaknesses. So strength and weaknesses is the internal, it's the company thing, and the opportunity and weaknesses is the opportunity and threat is from the external environment. Opportunity and threat is always exist in the external environment. So what type of strategy the organization can make, ST and SO, WO and WT. These are the strategy which the organization can establish. So in internal environment we have the strength, and we have weaknesses which the company itself in internal environment we have employee, we have managers. So this is the internal environment, but in the external environment we have the micro and macro. In macro we have the stakeholder, competitor, supplier, and some specific of law and rules. And in the micro we have the natural environment, we have geographical environment, we have technological challenges, and we have political and legal issues, and we have culture. So these all are the macro environment things. So the opportunity and threat are come from external environment, and the weaknesses and the strength is in the internal environment, which is the company thing. Okay, so then we have plan is basically the written document. After setting the goal, after making the strategy, we make and we write them, and we outline these all steps and things what we are going to do and how we are going to achieve it. So in plan is important part, because here we start the action. So then we have organizing. In organizing, we structure our plan, we structure our goal, we structure our objective, how we are going to achieve this target, how we are going to achieve this goal, how we are achieve this desired outcome. And then we have the human resource management. In human resource management, we are look on that, how we manage our human capital, and what task we allot to whom. So in this we are dividing the responsibility, we are allotting the responsibility to every individual according to their job description, according to their responsibilities, according to their skills, according to their qualification, according to their grading, according to their level in organization. So this is all about the human resource management. Then after it we have leading, in which we have motivation, leadership, communication, individual and group behavior. Basically, leader is communicating and motivating the team and worker to achieve the target. So motivation is all about counseling, provoke and stimulate the team member and the individual towards achieving the goal. So we can motivate the individual and team by so many things. We can give some rewards, we can give some recognition. It's depend whether the employee is motivated by intrinsic reward or extrinsic reward. So then we are communicate. In communication, we deliver the piece of knowledge and the information which need to accomplish, we need to attend the target and objective. So then we have individual and group behavior. In individual and group behavior, we look at the behavior and attitude of individual and group. So we look at the group and individual, whether they are motivated or they need some sort of counseling or motivation, whether they are taking interest in this target or objective, or we need to motivate them, we need to push them. So in this we are evaluate the behavior of team and individual. Then we have controlling. In controlling, first we have some standards, first we have some measures, then first we have some benchmark, and then we are measure it whether we are achieving our targets, whether what's the actual performance and what's the standard, and we try to we then we compare it whether we are doing well or we are not doing well. If the difference is significant, so we will take the actions, we will take the managerial action. And if the difference is non-significant, insignificant, so we will do nothing. So first we have benchmark, then we measure the actual performance, and then we measure the actual performance in with benchmark in comparison session. And then after it, if we have the significant differences, significant variation, so we will take the managerial actions like disciplinary action, corrective action, whatever the situation is. And if the difference is insignificant, so we will do nothing, we will move on to the next step and not next process. And after it we have the control process, in which we have three steps. The first one is measuring the actual performance. First we evaluate the present and the current performance of team and group, and after it we will compare the actual performance against the benchmark. Then we will compare that what the variation, what the difference, what the deviation we have between the actual performance and the standard performance. And as I told you in the previous slide, if the deviation is significant, so we take the managerial action. And if the deviation is insignificant, so we do nothing, we will move on the next process. Then after it, if we have significant deviation, then we take the action. Then we take the managerial action like disciplinary action, like corrective action, and if the employee is facing the shortage of raw materials, so we will provide them. And if the employee have is facing some problem in machinery and or power, so we will repair it. And if the employee is not punctual on their work, so we will take the disciplinary action. So we will take the action according to the situation which we are facing. And after it, we have the control process, in which we have three steps. The first one is managing the actual performance, in which we evaluate the current performance of employee and individual. And then we will compare the actual performance with standard, with benchmark. And after it, we take the managerial action. In the middle, we have the goals and objectives, in which we have the organizational goal, then divisional goal, then departmental goal, then individual goal. Organizational goal is, if we take the example of any organization, so if any organization targeted the 10 billion profit annually, okay, so this is the organizational goal. Then we have the divisional. Then after it, we have divisional. If we take the example of Unilever, so we have so many division: food, beverage, and skincare. So every division has their target. So and skincare division want to target 10 crore. And if the beverage is targeting the to 15 crore. So everyone is setting their goal, everyone is setting their target, and they work on it. Then departmental, if we look at the department level, so we have human resource, we have finance, we have marketing, then we have production. So every department have their own goals and objective. If we talk about the marketing, so they need some finance for marketing the specific product, for launching the specific product. And if we talk about the finance department, so it's controlling their finance. it's uh, mm, it's do the inspection, what department how the department using the money, and in which thing they are using the money. And if we talk about the human resource management, so they are look after how the human capital is using, whether they are productive, whether they are efficient, whether they are effective and efficient. So these all the things every department is trying to achieve. And if the production department, so they are evaluating the supply and demand of raw material. So every department have their own objective. And if we come on the next level, individual to individual have their own goals and objective. Because with every target, individual have some compensation, some bonuses, some perks. And by achieving these targets, they will get some sort of reward, some promotion, some perk, and anything which the top level promised to the individual, and which attach with their job description. So then we have managing how and what we measure. The source of information, we can collect the information about the individual and about the team, about the group, by different sources. The first one is personal observation. By personal observation, we can directly observe the group, we can directly observe the individual, in which we can look how much the organization is motivated, and how eagerly he want to achieve his goal. And whether he is motivated or not motivated, whether he is enjoying his target, whether or not. So we are observing by our own eyes. And this is the best way, and this is the more reliable. And after it, we have a statistic report. In a statistic report, we have a written document about the uh, goals, how much goal is achieved, how much person is achieved, and how much is under the process. So it the facts and figure. And then we have oral report, in which we can take the report orally about the performance of individual and group. And after it we have written report, in which performance report, and in which we have in this is the written document, in which from which we can know about the performance of individual and team. And controlling criteria employ whether the employee is satisfied or not. And if she and he is satisfied, so obviously he will not leave the organization, and he will stay in the organization. And if he is not satisfied, so definitely it will cause turnover, which is costly for organization. Then we have the absenteeism. And if the employee is enjoy and don't bore at their work, so he is or she is not absent. He or she is punctual. But if he is bored and he is fatigued from their work and nature of work, so he is definitely try to avoid and try to not come at work. Then we have budget, in which the first one is cost. Cost is basically what the cost of achieving those target. Basically, every goal and every objective needs some investment if we want to achieve some objective or some goal. So we have some sort of cost. For example, if we want to achieve the target of 10,000 production of masks nowadays in pandemic, it's the really demanding thing. So we must have to invest some money on their clothing and stretching and their designing and packing, etc. Then output, what output we get from it. If we provide some uh, amount of clothes to their employee, to their production department, so how much marks they will able to stitch from it. So then we have sale. In sale we will look at uh, look at how much mask we will able to sell. So because if our sale is good, so it's cover our cost. So these all things are linked, and we have to measure it, we have to look at these all things. And then we are going to discuss some advantage and drawback of every source of information, the personal observation, in which we have some advantage of it and some drawback. First, handed knowledge. If we take it primarily, it's not filter, it's not modify. And intensive coverage of work activities, it's very hard to do. Personal observation is not easy to do, because it's need a lot of time and efforts. And drawbacks, subjected to personal biases. If I dislike any individual, any worker, so maybe I by judging him or her, I put some my personal biases. So it is the drawback of personal observation, because we are judging by personal opinion and personal perception. And time consuming, of course it's time consuming, because it's time consuming, we are wasting a lot of time in this method. And obstructive, it's interfering, because we are sometimes if we are observing someone directly, so it's disturb the privacy of other person. And the second is a statistic report, easy to visualize. We can visualize it, and we can show the relationship between the dependent and independent variable, and between the variables. And the drawback is we have limited information, and we ignore the subjective factor. It's all the fact and figure, so the psychological factor and the opinion based thing is missing in this method. And then we have the oral reports, which is comprehensive and formal and easily filed and retrieved, but take more time to prepare. It time consuming like the personal observation. And after it, we have comparing. In comparing, we will compare the actual performance with benchmark, and we look at the variation, how much variation we are facing, whether it's acceptable or whether it's not acceptable. So in the next slide, we have the diagram in which on the y-axis we have the measure of performance, on the x-axis we have the time period. um, uh, the upper dot is basically upper acceptable limit, and the middle we have standard, and the lower we have acceptable lower limit. And at time we have T and T1, T2 and T3 and T4 and T5. It's the time period, whether it monthly based, it weekly based, it yearly based. We can assume whatever we want. So the first T in at the first T we are at lower acceptable limit, and then after the first T, and then we can take we can assuming it monthly basis. So in the next month we are above the standard, and in the next we are somewhat ab- little above the standard, but in the fourth month we are below the standard, and in the fourth and fifth, and the five finally we put some effort and we are below the standard, little below the little above the standard. So it's the graph, but the important thing is here. The important thing in that is that in this graph is that it's in acceptable range. So it's the insignificant variation. It is acceptable. So if the variation is acceptable, so we don't have to do anything. Mm, but if it insignificant, if it's significant, so we take the action. Then we have the chart of green earth gardening supply, which in this chart they have show the sales of Jan, in which we have many products. The first one is vegetable oil, vegetable plants, and perennial flowers and annual flowers, with herbs, with flowering bulbs and flowering bushes and heirloom seeds. So they have fixed some standard, and the actual performance is for first is 31931 and so on. So in the first one we are under the performance, we are under the performance and under the standard, and in the second we are above. So this is the chart of green earth gardening supply, in sales of July. So this is how they are achieving or achieving the actual, or they are achieving the actual targets, or sometime achieving above the standard or sometime below the standards. So then we have taking managerial action, course of action. In the first one is doing nothing, only if deviation is just judged to be insignificant. If the variation is insignificant, unimportant, so we ignore it and we do nothing. And after it, correcting actual and current performance. um, in and if the deviation is significant, so we take the corrective action, in which we have immediate action and we have basic action. What is immediate action? Immediate action is basically correct the problem at once, to back on track on to back on to back the performance on track. So, and the basic corrective action is basically to finding the root cause of the problem, to locate and correct the source of deviation from where we are facing the variation, from where we are facing the deviation. So we correct it from source. We find out the root cause. So corrective action include change the strategy. If we think that our standard is not realistic, and it's not realistic and sound, so we change it, and then we change the structure of plan we made, and then the compensation scheme. For we put some penalty, or maybe if we are offering very low reward or incentive, so we increase it. So, and training program, if we think that the employee has needs some sort of training, so we program some training for individual or groups. Redesign the job. If we allot the wrong job to the wrong person, so it will also cause the problem and fire employee. And if we think that he and she is not doing well, and he and she is not good for that job, so we can fire him or her too. Then we have the course of action, revising the standards. The first one is examining the standard to ascertain whether or not the standard is realistic, fair, and achievable. First, we ensure that the standard is realistic, achievable, and fair, and if it's not like that, so we revise it. Upholding the validity of the standard. We we ensure the validity of the standard, resetting the goal that were essentially set too low or too high. If our standards are too low or too high, so we change it, so we revised it, so we redesign it. Then we have the diagram, managerial action in the controlling process. So the first one is objective. Objective is basically the desired outcome and targets, and then we set um, some sort of a standard, and then we have measuring the actual performance. So we measure the actual performance, and then we compare the actual performance with the benchmark, and after it we will move on to the next arrows. Is the standard being attained? So uh, whether we achieve our benchmark. If yes, so we do nothing, but if no, so we ask the next question: is variance acceptable? If the is deviation acceptable? If yes, so we do nothing, but if no, then we ask the next question: is a standard acceptable or not? If the standard is acceptable, then we identify the cause of variation. And if the standard is not acceptable, so we will revise it. So if we identify, then we identify the cause of variation and correct the performance. But if the standard is acceptable, so we revise. Is not acceptable, so we revise the standard. So our time is over. Basically it's 10:40. So I'm going to stop here, and from the next session we will continue from this slide, and hope you will get some from this session. And if you guys have any queries, so you can ask on group, and thank you so much. Take care.